I wanted to ask you a question, and it's a question I've been getting a lot lately, and I think unfortunately, a lot of fans, I think there's kind of like the fantasy footballization of fandom, where if there's not if there aren't statistical, like if a guy doesn't have stats, then people are like, oh, why isn't he playing well? I think Ben Sinnott's playing quite well for a rookie.
Oh, yeah.
He's super tough, super physical.
Yeah.
The stats haven't really followed in the pass game.
Sure.
And a lot of people are like, oh, man, they got to get Sinnott going. I think when you have a top 5 offense, you don't necessarily need to get anyone going. You just keep doing what you do. But what do you think of Sinnott so far? And what do you think kind of happens going forward here?
Yeah, I think Sinnott's doing a really good job. I think the physicality that he plays with, the versatility he brings to the offense, that kind of Kyle Juszczyk fullback element is really, really valuable. So I think there are times where you're kind of like, that's probably a mental mistake that happens, once or twice a game. He's a young guy trying to figure it out. But I think in terms of role, like him and John Bates, man, like the Bash brothers out there, it's pretty exciting to watch. And I know there's not a lot of catches, but like that's not his role right now. John Bates doesn't have a lot of catches, and you don't say he's playing bad football. It's like my role is to be physical, block in space. When I do have an opportunity to catch football, I'm going to catch it. And that's not to say he can't do that. And I think they'll use him more as his career evolves in that way. But
I think for Sinnott and for Luke, the second half of the season here could be where you start to see more consistent offensive production.
And I think Luke's I would probably put him ahead of Ben, because Ben's role right now is something very, very specific. But I do think Luke, he runs good routes. He gets open. He has a great feel for zones. And right now, I think his production hasn't been there because Terry and Noah Brown are playing so well.
Right.
And Zach's playing so well. And so it's like, people are like, oh, we got to get these guys more touches. They're rookie guys in their first year. They're playing well. Like when you watch the film, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're doing it well. I think Luke plays with a great physicality, much like Ben. It's really nice when he's on the field because he, as a chipper, he does a great job. Again, the understanding of zones and coverage is really, really high with him. So I think as they go, they'll get more involved. And I think there'll be games where maybe Ben has 3 catches and maybe Luke has 4 catches, because like that's the great thing about Kliff, in my estimation, is he's not going to force feed touches to people.
Right. Well, and I think it's important to recognize that they're having really good rookie seasons, even if necessarily the production from can I play this dude in fantasy or can I bet on this dude for an anytime touchdown? Like, so much has changed in how a lot of people view football because of sports betting and like just the super popularity of fantasy. Like, those dudes, you probably shouldn't be betting on them.
Don't bet on them. But this is something I have a really hard time with fantasy. When people are like, oh, who should I put in for fantasy? And then people that list a bunch of names, I'm like, they're good football players. And that's how I judge it, right? Like when people are like, which tight end should I pick? I'm like, I don't know who's going to have the most catches. I don't know who's going to have the most touchdowns. But if I was making a team, I want those guys on my team. Like Zach Ertz, I think is a great example of that.
So I think people don't recognize how well he's playing.
Zach.
33 catches, 350 yards, a touchdown. But
it's just like, if you don't recognize
his ability
what
to
are you
get
watching?
Open, his ability to run routes is just, he is really, really good. His footwork, all of it.
Yes, I think that's the thing, is like his superpower is maybe not his top end velocity. He's not as explosive as he was when he was younger, but he gets it. He gets how to so for example, like we got one plug coverage and there's a guy in man coverage. He's outside leverage. Zach knows how to stem that outside leverage player enough to get away from the plug player, that kind of middle defender, and create a throwing window for Jayden and win consistently versus man-to-man coverage and make contested catches. And so when you look at it, you should look up his third down catch percentage if it's on there. But it's very, very high. And it makes sense because Jayden can go to him in big moments and get these big completions.
How about this? I don't have specific third downs. I'd have to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, we're not into digging here.
Well, we're also live on the air.
Yeah.
Ertz has 33 catches this year.
Yeah.
19 of them have gone for touchdowns.
That's a perfect statistic. Yeah, we don't need to dig for that. So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And that's almost 2/3.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
And I think it was a really smart move organizationally. And it's funny because the coaching stuff we say DQ and the front office stuff we say leaders. I imagine getting Ertz was a far more team concept, because I imagine Kliff reached out to him. Those two are tight.
They're tight.
You know what I mean? But rookie quarterback who obviously is a hell of a player and has hit the ground running in a million ways, the best thing for a rookie quarterback is to give him a big tight end target for third downs.
And it's just a guy who, like you said, like this is his value. He understands how to get open, understands coverages, and is a good, friendly target for the quarterback. Like that's it. And bringing that guy in,
that's really good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's a good thing to have.
right.
And I think the other thing is, it's like when you are in a critical situation, like going for first down, for example, and Jayden Daniels can look to somebody and know that they're going to get open, there is value there. There is confidence there. And so that's what Zach gives you. That's what Terry gives you. Noah gives you an element of that. And I think that's something that when you're talking about the most important thing about this year is developing Jayden Daniels, you brought in somebody who helps you facilitate that and that you know and is a good dude and can lead and help mentor a young tight end if you need to. So I think that lots of positive boxes checked there.
This is really funny. You played here for Jay, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you know Jay, he's just funny. Like he's a
funny dude.
But as Jay has become more and more of like a media person, the dude coached in the NFL. I mean, he was a head coach for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, OC for a long time.
He's got people all over the league. And I assume this is about Trevor Lawrence. Jay Gruden just tweeted out, sources say surgery for Trevor. Damn, get well, man. Hope sources are wrong. I just think that's so funny. I don't know. I assume he's talking about Trevor Lawrence. Is there another Trevor that's hurt that we may or may not know about?
I don't know. That would be the one I would think.
I know he's been limited at practice. He's got a shoulder injury.
Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if this is Jay breaking news, it's just a hysterical way to do it.
It's just a funny way to do it.
I love hope sources are wrong. Because I feel like
if you were writing that tweet, how would you write it? Because you're a pro's pro.
Trevor Lawrence, either sources tell us Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence is headed for surgery, or Trevor Lawrence headed for surgery per source.
Oh, that's how pro does it.
And you try to maybe give a little more information, like expected to go on IR or expected to miss 3 to 6. Whatever.
I got a question for you. When you say per source, is that just like your mom giving you that, or is what qualifies?
That's a great
source?
question, because this is not understood by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially in the Twitter, Instagram era of
it gets crazy.
Trade deadline. A source that you can report information from is somebody with direct knowledge.
I see.
They're
like his agent, or
I mean, in a scenario like that, it'd be somebody from the team, but like the coach or the GM,
right?
Not the dude that works at ticket sales,
not the quality control guy,
right? Yeah. Right. It would be somebody directly from the team, or him, the player,
right?
The player's agent.
Right.
Maybe you could go to a publicist if you have a relationship and they're locked in, and
right.
Typically, some people have their agent, and then there's a different dude that handles their public stuff. But when the publicist is in-house with the agency, you could trust that more. But it's someone that knows, right? Not anytime it's a secondhand, I heard, that you cannot report.
That's what I'm saying. And you see people doing that all the time.
Because especially as the world expands and there's man, my brother is an agent and told me, you can't, my cousin, anytime it's removed, one step removed, that is not reportable. And to actually report something, you need to get it from 2 people, not one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The actual journalism rule. And the more I do all this other stuff, the less I feel like a straight up journalist anymore. But to actually report something, you have to get a story and then verify it.
Yeah, I think I wish people understood that more, because I see people talking about stuff, even on some people in this sports community here, not necessarily on the beat, because we got a pretty locked in beat, but it's I heard this and this, and you can't tweet that. You don't know,
right?
You haven't talked. You
haven't
talked to anybody else. Or I saw this guy at practice with this on his ankle. Oh, he's.
The Twitter doctors that just have seen a video,
wild,
and then people just believe it that it's correct. And the other part of it is, if you do get information like that, right? The right way to handle things is not to run to Twitter. Say it's something about a player on this team. You call the team and you're like, hey, I know this. And depending, time gets involved. And if you're going to lose the scoop, there's a lot of factors, but you always want to give whatever the subject of the news is, a heads up, you have the news.
I see.
And sometimes they're like, yo, here's the context. Can you please hold off on this?
Right.
Like, as you build relationships and start
I was going to say, because you want to make sure relationships are maintained.
Totally.
Like, it's important to kind of scoop and be the first one to get it, but also you don't want to damage your relationship with the organization.
Or be wrong or not have the full story. Like, there's a lot of ways things can go.
That's been interesting because sometimes I thought I've had a scoop or some information before, and I've gone and talked to either the individual or the coach or the agent about it. And that's not really my job, so I don't do this often. But they're like, that's actually not correct. It's actually XYZ. And you're like, oh, that makes way more sense, actually. I'm really glad I didn't go spouting off at the mouth about that.
Interesting times when everybody's in a hurry to get retweets.